For the last month, I've been neglecting my YouTube life and playing the brand new free-to-play game Lost Ark. I haven't been this into a game since I started playing Minecraft 4 years ago. Me and a few million other players got caught up in the world of Lost Ark, and many are wondering why the game is showing no significant signs of slowing down, remaining the second most downloaded and concurrently played Steam game of all time, right behind CSGO, even overshadowing the new Dark Souls-esque game Elden Ring. How has an MMORPG managed to do this? For the last 8 years, and arguably longer, MMORPGs have been pay to win, pay to play, or just utter garbage. And because of this, anyone under the age of 16 years old or so has never gotten to experience and understand why these games are considered the most complete form of video game to a lot of people. If you want to spark notes on why MMORPGs are considered complete games, this genre of game has so much for players to do, places to explore, things to experience, PvP and PvE content to consume, secrets to uncover, systems to dive into, and so much more. MMORPGs make other genres of games in comparison look more like distractions rather than games, which for some people is all they need, of course. Lost Ark is a free-to-play MMORPG that does more things right than any free MMORPG has in a very long time, and after reaching 1350 item level, cementing myself firmly into tier 3, which is equivalent to reaching the endgame in Lost Ark, I can say as a fact that this is true. Lost Ark does a lot right. That being said though, it does a few things wrong as well. Don't just take my word for it here though. In this video, I'm going to explain what Lost Ark truly is, what the game does right and wrong, an overview of how to play the game and understand many of its systems, and my overall review of the game. To someone who has never played Lost Ark, to someone who has played Lost Ark for a while but doesn't know what to do once you hit level 50, this may be the only video you ever need to watch on Lost Ark. With that out of the way, let's get right into it. First, I'll start with Lost Ark Story. If you don't care about that, you can skip this section, but the story even early on is actually rather good. You start off your adventure with one of 5 backstories. Originally in the game, you would level from 1 to 10 in a story-driven epic tale, and from my friends who experienced the content years ago when it still existed, they said that the first 10 levels did an amazing job of setting the world of Lost Ark up. The first 10 levels being story-focused and being unskippable would most likely turn some players off who just want to be OP and fight stuff, so that is probably why the developers opted for summarizing the first 10 levels of every class into a cutscene for Korea a few years ago, and keeping that model for the official restaurant release. And yes, all 5 classes had an entirely different first 10 leveling experience, and this also probably made the game a lot more gigabytes to download. So while in our public version we no longer have quite as engaging story development early on, you still get to experience your class's first 10 levels through an introductory cutscene. I will use the female fighter's backstory as an example, as this is the only one I found full footage of. As a fighter, your intro centered around you being a promising pupil who was told to take the Guardian's test, which is a trial very few martial artists are ever able to pass. You face a few tests and have to fight another competitor who gets help from a demon. After great discipline and a showcase of true strength, you gain the Guardian's blessing and are given the title Champion of the Guardians. A great Guardian then tells you that your true destiny can only be found at the source of all light. The Guardian opens up a portal to Beatrice in Trixion, who takes over. With her instruction, you are placed on a path to save the world from imbalance, and you need the Arks in order to do this. The reason you want to find these Arks is that the Arks signify great power in different forms, and when brought together, place the world in a state of light where darkness cannot breach. Demons, seeing this as an absolute lose, will try to stop you from doing this. All 5 class backstories have this epic exposition and transition, thrusting you into the world of Lost Ark and explaining to the player that you are not role-playing as a pirate or some random dude, but rather your character is the ultimate badass and you are on the most sacred of quests to save the entire planet. This, in my opinion, is most apparent with the Sorcerer's backstory, where you literally inherit the powers of the strongest elven mage to ever live, whose strength is supposedly on par with the gods. You being able to wipe the floor with waves of enemies with ease as any class is no mere coincidence. You're not just an overpowered traveler, but rather an incredibly powerful person with a lot of responsibility. I find this roleplay aspect very exciting and gives Lost Ark's leveling experience a feeling of weight that most MMORPGs do not have. Now though, the introduction is more simple, with some of this lore being very easy for players to miss out on, with you seemingly just being told to gather the Arks from this random person after an unspectacular cutscene, but it is what it is. Throughout your level 10 to 50 adventure, you search various cities on a wild goose chase for the Arks, as you were never given any instruction on where to look, rather than being told, "I swear they're in Arkesia somewhere, probably, and then you eventually find 4 of them while also saving a few cities and hundreds of people to boot. I recommend skipping all side missions unless you just want more stuff to do, as the main storyline continues even past level 50, and if you do the side missions, you will hit level 50 pretty fast, and then you may be confused why you can't do endgame stuff yet despite being level 50. Once you complete Shoeshire, which is a region at the far north of your world map, you can finally enter Chaos Dungeons, Abyssal Dungeons, Raids, and can do your weekly and daily Una tasks. More on these in the next section. At item level 460, 600, and 960, you get some amazing story quest lines to go through as you find the remaining arcs, but I won't spoil that stuff as it isn't necessary. I do recommend watching the cutscenes though, as they are honestly breathtaking at times. The story wraps up when you reach Punica at item level 1100, but the story doesn't finish there. You have to fight Belshazzar and the Lord of Darkness himself in cataclysmic fashion. These boss battles, as far as I know, will be released in the upcoming future, but as for right now, our story ends in Punica after calming a very angry horsey. Now that is all well and good, but many people don't care about the story. They want to know more about the game and how to play it efficiently. Well, once you finish the Shoeshire questline, you will be able to do daily and weekly group content. Most of Lost Ark can be played solo, and some people love this and some people hate this, since Lost Ark is a massively multiplayer online roleplay game after all. But once you reach raids and abyssal dungeons, you'll be forced to play co-op to get the most rewards for yourself in the least amount of time. You can't enter your weekly dungeons without being in a party of 4 or 8, and while you can solo the raid bosses, it will be much harder and usually more time consuming. This content is honestly very fun, and even though I personally love a good story, I had even more fun in these dungeons with my friends trying to figure out how to not die like absolute idiots against insane mechanics. These raids and dungeons are pretty hard and require some coordination and brain cells you will wipe every time. To level up your gear to do these harder dungeons, you should hone your gear. You do this with the resources and materials you get from doing your Chaos Dungeons, your Raids, your Abyssal Dungeons, the Tower, the Cube, daily and weekly events, and one-time island quests. I will link that island guide in the description, but basically if you follow the island guide and do the things above once you hit level 50, you can just power through to mid-tier 2, or over 900 item level, really fast. This all seems a bit overwhelming, but do not worry, as if you don't log in every day, you do build up rest bonus, and this will allow you to get double rewards for content when you do log in. If you don't log in for a week, this rest bonus will be capped though, so logging in once a week to make sure you're not losing out on too many rewards is nice, but still not necessary. Remember, MMORPGs, even more than other genres of games, are just meant to be fun. There's a lot to do in the game, not to overwhelm and confuse players, but there's a lot to do to keep players interested in having fun. Just because you can make more gold or silver doing one thing, such as leveling up your item level, doesn't mean you have to. If you do a lot of side objectives, you'll still be incredibly rewarded in Lost Ark. One example is exploration. If you find these hidden Makoko seeds that can be found in just about any zone in the world, you will unlock passive stat boosts and powerful items that you can trade in for crazy rewards. If you just open up a map guide online looking for these, or just explore every corner of the map and find them, you will be rewarded. Rapport is also something optional, but incredibly powerful and encouraged. You can build stronger friendships with specific characters in-game by giving them gifts, showing them emotes, playing them songs, and the like. And this stuff doesn't take very long at all. While I haven't done much rapport yet, my friends who have are a bit stronger than myself in-game because of the passive benefits they got rewarded from the NPCs. You of course don't have to do rapport though. You have a lot of freedom in Lost Ark, and it's one of the reasons why players love this game. And I doubt Amazon and Smilegate, the publisher and developer of Lost Ark, will ever make us feel forced to do anything in-game. Once you get these fundamentals down, you'll want to look more at your character's profile. Keep in mind that everything I'm about to tell you is information that can be found in-game via purple guide quests or in the tutorial zone that can be reached at the bottom right of your screen via this icon. First off, the Power Pass. When you hit level 50 and finish the Shoeshire questline, you will obtain a Power Pass in the mail, and once you claim that, you can go into your character selection screen and instantly level any character to level 50 and past Shoeshire. If you don't like your main or just leveled a source or something because it was faster and now you want to play a different class, you certainly can, because now you're going to have 2 level 50 characters. You will also get 1 more Power Pass for free on your alt character or your second character. So now you're going to have 3 level 50 characters, and all you needed to do was level that first one. If you want to have more than just 3 level 50 characters without manually leveling, you can go into your stronghold and use the knowledge transfer, but this will cost 600 gold. Keep in mind that you must complete the Stronghold introductory quest first to unlock the knowledge transfer, and you will know that you have finished this once you place your first furniture out on your lawn after the little small guy tells you to. You don't need to play more than one character, but the game allows you to because you can only do your dailies once, but if you have multiple characters, you can do dailies once on each character, for example. Many rewards you grind out can be placed in your account warehouse to help your main character level up faster, or you can sell the materials you get for gold, etc. Having alts is not necessary, but can make gearing up a bit faster, so most people personally recommend it. Now let's move on to the gearing process. Your character can equip armor and accessories, pretty straightforward, but you can also equip an ability stone in this box. These stones unlock at around level 50 and have to be faceted at a faceting NPC marked by a blue gem. You want to try to get as many blue diamonds as possible and as few red diamonds as possible in general, and if you get 5 diamonds in a row, you unlock that engraving ability at level 1 when you equip that stone on your character. The stones can also give you a lot of HP when you equip the good ones. You can read all engraving effects in the engravings menu if you're curious, but these abilities are all useful to some extent, but some more than others, and your class engravings are usually much more useful. One example of an engraving for new players is Crisis Evasion. Now when you take lethal damage, you will instead become invincible for 3 seconds, and the cooldown of this is 15 minutes at level 1. One example of an engraving for experienced players is Grudge. You now take more damage from bosses, but you also deal more damage to them, and this is really nice once you hit Grudge level 3 and can dodge attacks. On the left of your character profile, you have 2 boxes for engravings. When you play the game naturally, you will be given some books from NPCs for quest rewards or from other miscellaneous stuff, and when you read enough of the books, aka 20, you will unlock these engraving effects. When you equip these here, you will get these effects for your character. You can also sell the books you don't want at the endgame broker or buy the ones you want. 20 green books red followed by 20 blue books will give you 6 points into the engraving for only one of your 2 spots equipped. So I recommend that at first, and you can read the purple and gold books later since they are more expensive, and you will get quite a few for free just from playing the game in Tier 3. You can access the broker via the mallet on your map, or from your pet if you have the crystalline aura. To get the crystalline aura for free, you will trade your gold for crystals at the currency exchange, and then you will buy the aura with the crystals in the shop. Pretty simple. Mats and consumables are bought and sold at the market, and gear and equipables are bought and sold at the auction house. You can buy just about anything you need, but gear also costs fions, and while the game gives you plenty for free, if you run out, you'll need to buy more with crystals that you again buy with the gold from the currency exchange. Make sure to claim your currency in the history tab of the currency exchange since the funds go there instead of your mailbox for some reason. If you use the currency exchange, you can get any beneficial item from the shop just through the gold you make easily while playing the game. I won't cover how to make gold or silver very much in this video, but I am sure that there are great guides out there since it isn't super complicated, just a knowledge gap. Lastly, for the profile window, you will want to take a look at these numbers right here. Depending on your class or subclass, you will ideally want a bit more of these numbers for combat efficiency. Crit is always nice, and specialization is almost always nice. Swiftness is nice for movement speed and attack speed if you value that, and the other stats are more niche and truly depend on what you're trying to do. Usually to be safe, for a more support playstyle, specialization should be the focus. For healing, you can have specialization and endurance if you truly just want to stay alive and heal. And for damage purposes, you will want crit and usually still a lot of specialization depending on your class. Expertise increases your stagger efficiency and length of debuffs on enemies and decreases the time debuffs stay on you. If you combine this with domination, which makes you do more damage to enemies affected by debuffs, you can end up doing quite a lot of damage as long as you are a class that can keep enemies debuffed or staggered, Paladin being an example. Specialization normally helps classes much more than expertise and domination, but domination at least can be useful in group content since bosses will always be debuffed by someone in the party. Plus, domination accessories are super cheap. You will get these stats from your accessories, as well as some engraving effects at the higher levels. For item level 302 to 600, that is really all you need to know. In Tier 2, you will get introduced to gems that you will equip for passive bonuses, and this is super straightforward and always useful. You combine gems at the bottom of your inventory by clicking this little gem, or you can just equip or sell them. Selling the tier 3 ones seem very profitable since right now everybody wants them and you get a lot from maps, boss rush, chaos dungeons, and even from Mary's shop. Lastly, you get cards while playing, which you can try to get set bonuses of to slightly increase your defenses, HP, or damage against specific enemies. Cards are not really that important until much later in the game as far as I understand, but I always have sets equipped for the extra HP and or defenses. Now, if all that seemed overwhelming, do not fear, we are almost done. Once you start leveling up your gear at level 50, some other stuff opens up, but it is very simple. If you run a weekly dungeon and succeed, you will take your rewards and go to this abyssal NPC marked with a sword. You can then craft a higher tier of gear for dirt cheap, which is always worth it until level 3 when you have a few more things to consider. Other than these things though, you can just go have fun and explore the game. Players really love this freedom, and while they can't gear up as fast as people who have more gold, they will still be able to level up pretty fast if they play even just an efficient hour every day. And if they do try hard with making gold like I did, then you can keep up with just about anyone in the game, besides mega whales that I will talk about in the pros and cons section. Some ways to make gold include doing your daily Una tasks that you access via Alt-J by default, and when you complete these quests you get Una tokens that you will trade to gold merchants for gold pouches. You will pretty much always want to buy the last one, by the way, as it gives the most gold on average for the price. You can also make gold by cutting down trees and selling the wood, foraging plants and selling the leaves, selling some excess level up materials you think you don't need right now, selling the stuff you find by following treasure maps you obtain from daily chaos gates, and just a whole bunch of other methods. You won't be worrying about gold or silver almost ever unless you genuinely want the most expensive engravings or perfect accessories without looking for them yourself. If you reroll gems a lot or just want to buy some crazy food items, you may run out of silver, especially in tier 3, which can be rough. You can trade 1k gold for 100k silver at a gold merchant, but I recommend just doing some dailies for silver on your alts instead, as the exchange rate isn't very good in my opinion. The last tip I will give before moving on is that once you hit tier 2 after completing the Yorn questline, and once you finally hit tier 3 and do the Punika questline, you will unlock 2 stronghold research things that you need to do once you hit either of these milestones. This research will be labeled as roster help, and this will make all alt characters cost a lot less materials to gear up, and your alt success rates will also be much higher. No more 40 to 50% success rates and thousands of materials from 13 to 15. It will now be 60% to 70% and a few hundred, for example, and everything is 100% up until plus 10. This saves you a lot of time and resources. The stronghold is amazing for a handful of reasons that I won't go into, but this is arguably the most important one. Now, with all those tips out of the way, let's talk about combat and classes before finally finishing up with pros and cons and my overall review of the game after 300 hours played. Combat is by far my favorite aspect of the game, and every class has means of dealing absurd damage, even bards. Some people or content creators consider some classes better or weaker than others, but after playing even just 6 classes, I can say beyond a shroud of a doubt that every class is fun to play and is powerful. MMORPGs have a hard time balancing stuff usually, but Lost Ark does an incredible job. My Scrapper feels unstoppable and carries raids even harder than my Sorcerer does. My Hybrid Paladin always keeps people alive and often does the most DPS in raids. And my DPS Bard still has yet to die, and I never complain about her damage in Chaos Dungeons solo, and I never fail a raid on her. I will say though that my Artillerist and Sorcerer do feel even stronger than those 3 classes DPS wise at times, but I have to say that Scrapper and Paladin feel the most fun. I enjoy all these classes either way. Picking a main class is hard in the game since they're all pretty fun, but what I did was just ask myself what I wanted from the game. In MMORPGs, my answer is always, I want a class that is squishy, so I'm forced to learn mechanics in combat, and I want a class that does a lot of damage, so I'm rewarded for playing well. I went into Lost Ark completely blind when the game came out with just a gold pack on my back and said, usually mages fit into that, and I was right. Although you can only play as a female as a sorcerer, and I almost always play dudes in MMOs, I got over this negative really fast. I do have to say though that my paladin looks so much better in cutscenes compared to my source. Either way, combat should be played your own way and is so incredibly flexible. I would highly recommend not watching meta videos unless you have no idea what to do for like PvP for example. There are some incredible videos on that I'm sure. I have not watched a single class build video or read a single class guide, and I have only ever rarely struggled with any content in the game, and usually that's because just not knowing mechanics. I bring what skills I need for what I'm fighting, whether it's AoE, single target, or passing a stagger and weak point checks. I just go with the flow. Incompetence from teammates holds players back so much more than bringing an arguably less powerful skill or two. You can make skills completely different from what people recommend and still find success. Play the game the way you want to play it, and eventually you will find your perfect build. When the hardest endgame content comes out in the future, you may want to try thinking harder on what you can do to be the most efficient, but for right now you should just try to have fun alongside the hundreds of thousands of players who are no-lifing this game and will continue to no-life this game for months to come. Now, let's move on to the pros and cons of Lost Ark. While every player who plays Lost Ark is aware of most of these, there are some that I really want to talk about. The pros I've pretty much already listed, but here's a summary. Weighty combat, deep story lore, flashy and exciting cutscenes, emotional and beautiful cutscenes, incredible in-game engineering, difficult but usually fair content, exciting endgame fights that feel amazing to finally beat, a lot of content and things to do to keep players interested for hundreds upon hundreds of hours, beautiful character creation, fun exploration, a lot of freedom to play the game the way you want to play it, all classes being viable in both PvP and PvE, fair PvP where everyone's stats are equalized in the arena so it all comes down to skill and nothing more, HP and stats being equalized in many open world island PvP areas and events, a fair shop where players can't buy materials infinitely, plenty of cosmetics, all aspects of the game being explained well to the player through in-game guides, Bifrost points allowing players to teleport to custom areas simply and easily without having to travel there every time manually, all benefits players can pay for can be obtained simply through in-game gold for free-to-play players, and lastly, the Stronghold brings in a sense of creativity for people such as myself who personally love all things that remind me of Minecraft. Now, I am sure there are some things I forgot to mention, such as you can turn into a panda, but now I will move on to the few glaring cons that definitely exist. Players can buy crystals infinitely in the cash shop. Crystals are incredibly expensive, sure, and players are just better off buying them in-game with gold, but with less paying players buying crystals because of how expensive there are less crystals circulating the market, and the price of them will continue to go up if supply does not meet demand. Players getting 1k crystals for free for getting the 50 friends achievement is certainly nice, and right now supply and demand is in the balance, but who knows when this might change. While this is a good thing, since there are very few pay-to-play players since it isn't worth it, it makes crystals harder for free-to-play players to obtain since less players are buying them. Basically, the game is so unpay-to-win that it can be a problem for free-to-play players who just want to buy crystals from the pay-to-play players to get like skins from the shop or rewards from Mary's shop. On the flip side, if a whale wants to buy crystals infinitely, while it will cost them hundreds of thousands of US dollars to actually make a crazy difference in the market, they can, in theory, buy out a lot of the market and just level up infinitely. This, by definition, makes Lost Ark a pay-to-win game, but it costs so much to gear up by paying real money that nobody does it, making the game, in theory, completely unpaid to win, which, like I said, also causes problems for the economy. That being said though, the balance is better than any other free MMORPG game I've ever seen, but I still wanted to mention that because I see holes in the economy. Right now everything is fine, but if players stop buying crystals with real money, it will be hard for free-to-play players. It is funny how free-to-play players have to rely on players spending money in order to keep up with them. It is definitely ironic. If you don't care about skins or getting a few extra honing materials for leveling up faster though, then everything I just said in the previous con means nothing to you, and I'm sorry for wasting your time. Another con of the game some players mention is that if you only play one character, you will be at a gear disadvantage to somebody who plays multiple characters. You basically want to play multiple characters because daily rewards can be claimed once a day per character, like I mentioned earlier. If you plan on playing 2 to 3 characters, then you are playing efficiently for your time spent, and more is obviously better, but more time consuming. And if you're playing only one, it will take you a bit longer to level. I, for one, think this is basically just an argument of if you play the game more and more efficiently, you'll level up faster. And to me, that isn't a con, as every game has that. Even in a game like Minecraft, if you play Minecraft more, you'll get better at Minecraft. And if you use a sword and a shield and a bow, it'll be more efficient and you'll find more success than if you were to just use a sword and a shield and no bow. One other con is that if you skip through the story or don't care about the story at all and just want to hit stuff, then the leveling process will feel boring as it involves a lot of talking to NPCs and moving around. Personally, I think people who complain about the story shouldn't play MMORPGs as RPG is literally half of the genre, but it certainly is a con for some people, so I thought I would mention it. On that same note, if you hate fighting and scary stuff, then you may not like Lost Ark, as the world is dystopian and dark, and you have to fight a lot of demons and people alike. This game is certainly not for children, and not every parent would approve of the game's intense Mortal Kombat fighting feel. The game is also top-down, which means that many players will have to take 10 minutes out of their life to get comfortable with the combat. For me, I ended up liking the top-down combat so much that I don't know if I could go back to moving with WASD and MMOs. It just feels too clunky to me now. Moving with the mouse is so smooth, and pressing skills with my left hand has instant reaction time, and since I'm not clicking the skill, I get to keep my eyes on the boss at all time rather than looking at my skill bar. So I guess this con is more of a plus for me, but I thought it was a con at first, and for anyone who hates learning new things, this can be considered a con for sure. Entering Trixion and messing around with the training grounds is my favorite way to practice combat, so I highly recommend it if you're struggling. One other con that some players have is that in Tier 3, while the cost of plussing your gear doesn't get too expensive on its own, your success rates go down a lot. At 1350 item level, I only have a 15% success rate, and when using external forces to improve my enchanting rates, it won't go above 30%. At plus 24 to 25, I hear it is less than a 1% success rate. Some players hate this, but I myself don't mind it at all, because it doesn't cost a whole bunch of materials per attempt, and we are in the end of endgame. If you just get maxed out plus 25, plus 30 gear after a month, then what do you do after that? Even though you can do all the content, having an end goal of getting even stronger gear and getting ult to tier 3 to feed materials to your main has to exist for players. I think the low success rate is actually a good thing, or gear gaps will become too large and elitism will exist sooner. Plus, the low success rates kind of stops whales in their tracks, because they're like, why am I paying thousands of dollars for such a small advantage over other players? Now, for the last con, you can't play as a big muscular male sorcerer or an anime waifu berserker. Yet. I am sure that other genders of classes will come eventually, it's just a matter of when. All subclasses are gender locked at the moment, but on the bright side, all 5 classes' character creator has unique hairs, tattoos, eyes, and body types for you to appreciate and test around with. While there are no body sliders to aid in-game performance, all the character models leave little for the imagination and are very well designed, and the facial sliders grant you an incredible amount of freedom with facial construction. With all that said and done though, depending on your thoughts on the pros and cons section, you may already have made your mind up on the game, but I will still give my overall review and conclusion now. I went into Lost Ark incredibly skeptical because too many people were giving the game way too many positive reviews, even before it was released in the West. Even though I knew nothing about the Korean and Russian version of the game, I knew that the Western game was surely going to be different than the other versions, so all these positive reviews just put my guard up because I hate getting my hopes up only to be disappointed. Right as I entered Lost Ark though, honestly, I fell in love. And anyone who watches my first impression stream would agree. I have to say firmly that my main 2 games are Lost Ark and Minecraft now. I even stopped playing Genshin Impact, Prop Night, and a few other games daily to make sure I have enough time to play Lost Ark and still finish all my work. I played Lost Ark religiously the last few weeks to help make this video for you guys, and while I didn't talk about a lot of specifics, I think I gave a great overview of the game while still leaving a lot to the imagination. After playing the game and finally watching some videos on the game on some of the insane content we are getting eventually, I can say firmly that I understand now why millions of players have tried this game, why so many players have stopped playing Final Fantasy XIV, New World, and World of Warcraft to play Lost Ark, and why this game is projected to stick around for years to come as one of the major MMORPGs in the world. Skeptics and people who want to support their own favorite game have tried posting negative reviews or having pessimistic views on the game's future, but the player base remains unwavering, and that is a great sign. I thought as some players hit tier 3 last week that the numbers would die down, but now I understand why they haven't, because tier 3 content is super fun and there is still so much to do. Lost Ark is an amazing game and I truly enjoy it. I am glad to say that this game has reawoken my love for MMORPGs that Ion, Blade and Soul, ESO, and BDO shattered so long ago. Thank you, Lost Ark. MMORPGs are the perfect game for someone like me who loves having stuff to do, and Lost Ark took it a step further by not requiring me to play non-stop to find success and to have fun. If anything, I have had the most fun playing for just a few hours a day, and that is a breath of fresh air, since some games make you feel like you have to play all day to find the best results. I highly recommend this game to anyone over the age of 16 with a computer with 8 GB of RAM or more. You will not regret it. I will get back to making content soon as I feel a weight lifted off my shoulders after making this video. Have a wonderful day, gamers, and thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye.